So it feels like a lifetime since we talked 24 hours ago. Lots of cool stuff has happened. Did you get a chance to? Yesterday, I had James McEwen on in the afternoon, and
Yes, I listened to him for a while. Yeah, very good talk.
he's beautiful. He just, he's so really lives his practice, and I hope to have him on again because I'd like to share with people how he got there. Often we have to really hit the wall, to have a the experience of, oh my God, this is not working, and and I mean, some people are kind of drawn to consciousness subtly, but actually I've never met any of them. Most of us are drawn to it through calamity or through desperation.
It seems to be that way, yeah. Like the sort of the search for different experience than what life seems to be offering.
Yes.
I just talked to someone last night who I've talked to for a long time, and he's really troubled by fear, like intensely, and really intensely troubled by it right now with the circumstances externally. And and kind of wondering what the way out of that fear is, or at least so that it's not sort of dominating his everyday.
Crippling, can be crippling.
For him, it's crippling, and because it's so crippling, he can't avoid it. I think one reason, what you just said, is that as long as we can avoid sort of as long as it's manageable somehow, then I think our natural tendency is kind of to delay and avoid, because again, to really kind of go deeper and say, well, am I stuck with this fear? Or do I even have to acknowledge it? I'd rather not feel it, and to acknowledge it is maybe, I don't want to really acknowledge it because it becomes more real that way somehow. So maybe I'll just find ways to, stay clear of it somehow, maybe by doing things or by, so that works for some beings and it works for some time. But I think, in this case, particularly like with the overwhelm of the media, and if you have a bit of an addiction to exposing yourself to what's very easily available now on the web, then or feel that's an important thing, maybe it's like a moral duty to be informed and so on, then it can really become overwhelming as the numbers are coming in and as the many opinions are coming in and so on. So then the fear can become really intense. And particularly depending on what stake you have, like it's quite easy not to be afraid when you have no stake, so to say. Maybe I'm just noticing that my charger is not charging. Maybe like in this case, there's a family, so it's like, wow, what about my family? It's never mind my own fear. It's about the fear of the well-being of my family and so on. So those things can get quite intense, and yet,
Adrian, often when I'm working with people in recovery, and they've come to us out of desperation, if they have a family, often I'll in a way use the family and to as even as a motivator, to help them to see that their recovery, and I call it recovery, but their awakening, their spiritual experience is even more important if they have a family, because when we're living in fear, it's a luxury we truly can't afford, because it seems that what we fear, we create. And
I hear what you're saying for sure. Now, um, I cannot say that, look, when one is in fear, I cannot say that guilt for feeling fear.
Well, I'm not talking about guilt. I'm talking about like, you know,
Motivation, that I like that. You said motivation,
yeah,
but you have to be kind of cautious to say, because you know what you call this awakening,
yes,
not be forced. It
yeah,
cannot be done, you know? So
no,
it's almost like, well, I'm not supposed to be in fear because of my family, but the fact is I am.
yes,
I'm freaking out.
yeah.
You know,
So
and I can't just, you know, so then give me the tool.
I understand. Sheila used to say awareness, acceptance, change. You know,
Yeah.
so
Yes.
accepting that the fear is not making it wrong.
Yes, 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 yes. I
And
think
not
that's really key, because if there's a sense, because the fear already says everything is wrong, no?
yeah,
If something is really wrong, and I definitely can't control it. It's definitely beyond me, and it's a feeling and a sensation that I no longer can deny, because it's really taken over now.
so in surrender, we talked about yesterday about surrender. You know, um, if I'm numbing myself out to fear, if I've gone to a therapist or psychiatrist or a doctor and they've given me drugs so they don't have to feel the fear, you know, or if I'm numbing myself out with alcohol or street drugs
Right,
or
right, right. Yeah, but like we definitely have like a cultural attitude towards fear, of like what you say, numbing or avoiding. And
yes, yeah,
yesterday we talked about the letting go book, which is exactly, you know, when I did some letting go workshops some years ago, I thought, oh my God, people are going to be excited to hear this information, you know? But it's not so. It was like, it was extremely threatening. It was like, look, what you're saying is I should feel this, like, but it's not safe to feel this, because I feel that I'm gonna lose myself in this fear or something like this.
yes,
So no, I was hoping you'd give me a tool, you know, like you're saying, I'm saying walk into the storm.
yeah,
Every instinct of the person who is afraid is to run away, to
yeah,
get out of the storm, you
yeah,
know?
yeah.
And I think that is sort of the real challenge in the invitation towards an acceptance of feelings and so on, you
Yeah.
know. And
So it's not that saleable actually. You know, walk into the storm, feel the feelings. You know,
yeah, it's unattractive to the mind.
no, it's not for the faint of heart because you know. But if we get to desperation, you know,
Yes,
and
exactly. Yes.
if we get to desperation, and my job, especially in the recovery world, is to eventually move them from desperation to inspiration. You know,
Mhm.
because we can't always be living in calamity and being motivated by desperation.
Yes,
Um,
yes, yes.
although I've tried
Yeah,
that for a lot of years.
yeah, yeah. And I think, like what I said to my friend last night was, utilizing, like, he is really familiar with this fear. We've talked for a long time about it, and he found this fear now has found a really good reason to play out,
Yeah,
you know, that, and it's easy then for his, so the fear actually is not per se the issue, but what the issue is what the mind then says about this fear, you know. And so um the mind can get super loud and actually keep feeding the fear, like by telling, you know, by informing the being of like, well, and then this will happen, and then this will happen, and then this will happen, and so on, and go right into the future projections of the tragedy that's unfolding for.
living in a trailer in my brother's backyard. Yeah,
Yes, yes, yes.
collecting bottles.
It can very much go that way. And then what we talked about was to utilize this fear and this mental chaos that ensues from it, to notice that there is an aspect that is not involved in this chaos. There's like this, what some call the observer, you know. There's a quietness in front of which, or by which, it's recognized that all of this chaos, which one is usually quite familiar with by a certain age, no, it's
Yeah,
nothing new anymore, that's actually playing in front of something that is itself not involved with it, and that's quite peaceful and quiet. And that actually one's power is not in controlling the mind, but one has the ability to withdraw attention to the mind, and believing all its stories and being an involved
Yes.
Participant in that.
A certain amount of awareness to the fact that the mind is just a storyteller needs to
Yeah.
happen, and because when the lights go on, and people say, you mean my mind is full of shit?
Right.
You mean I've just been telling myself lies? Yes, and it seems true because it's happening, in a grand scale. But what's happening isn't really matter if we're really touching that space, the bedrock that is the capital S
Sure.
self.
I think it to 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 not evaluate what's happening so much and what how much it matters,
Yes.
because that's still mind. It's like, but something else matters. That is all happening fine, no problem. Like problem, but no problem also. It's
Mhm.
also a problem. Okay, let there be a problem, no problem. But bring the attention to something else that also matters,
Mhm.
in all of that, because one can see that, yes, of course, responsibilities don't go away, challenges don't go away, but coming from that fearful place and from that really strong mind place, it may not be the healthiest way to even come into interaction with the chaos outside.
No, of course not.
And
Um,
so then, saying, I don't have to deny everything that's happening at all.
yes.
That's not the point. It's not about somehow transcending out of that and saying, "Oh, nothing is happening. I'm happy," like this. No, no. It's about, well, while all of that is happening, which aspect is not happening? It's not partaking in that chaos, and from that place, what does it look like? And what are my interactions going to be like? you know what uh what will I say to the one who approaches me and is themselves in chaos? Will that pull me into the same chaos like
So
this?
it's interesting, even because in a way we're talking in a language that you and I understand, or that we know, and we're familiar with, but lots of folks don't know where, even have an I. It's hard to share in this language, without. I spoke last night on a meeting. There's 52 men on a Zoom call in my men's group,
Okay.
and lots of fear there, lots of it, and I talked to about, just even changing the context of what's happening, that we're all on retreat.
Right.
I used Muji's that this is a retreat. It's not an isolation. It's not a, we're not locked down. This is a, and and um and I talked about, taking this opportunity to do our spiritual work, our inner work, or
Right.
how many of the men are actually meditating, and as I listen to these regular fellas talk about, how they're doing projects in the house, they're trying to keep themselves busy,
Right.
and quite a few of them are living alone, so my hope with these calls and this exposure that we're doing is to point them somewhat towards, that inner strength that you're talking about,
Right.
and
So very much so. It's easy, even like it's because we all are aware. We wouldn't be listening to this video if we're listening to it. We wouldn't be talking within it if there was not awareness.
yes.
So everyone has the experience of being aware. Let's say even if you're building a project,
Hmm.
the fact that you can talk that you built a cupboard in the kitchen means while you were doing it, and afterwards you aware of it. So you see that your hands are building it. It's like you're watching yourself building it. That comes from a more still place than the building of it. You're aware that you were problem solving it. You were aware that you were measuring. You're aware that you're cutting. You're aware that you were cursing when you hit your finger.
So
all of this.
So you're saying that in some way that if we're consciously doing the project, then we're there.
Yes, of course.
We're present.
Yes.
But I guess I'm talking about
that's being in the moment, present.
Unless we're doing the project to get, unless we're doing the project to avoid the moment, to not feel.
Actually, that is when you do the project is likely a chance when you're actually present. That's not the problem.
Okay.
It's if you're doing the project, but you obsessively think and keep checking the internet as to how many people are dying.
Yes.
Then doing the project is not really helping you staying aware, but you can utilize the project if that's what you like to do your project,
Yes.
But do it with awareness, meaning utilize that opportunity to rein in your tendency to go somewhere else with your mind. Be present, do your project. Let that be your practice. This is staying in the now, as if you want to do Eckhart Tolle and so on. Stay in the now. What's now? Now I need to measure this. I need to be, it's hard. You'll make a lot of mistakes if your mind is all over the place. So that can be that practice. It's like a dynamic meditation or an awareness in a dynamic way. No, good to use that, particularly if that is exactly where you're at and you're going like meditation. I sit down and my head explodes. What am I even supposed to do? I've never done this before. I have no idea what you're even talking about. Fine, doesn't matter. Maybe through the project comes some insight into, oh yes, I am aware. This very awareness that is there while the project is taking place, actually I'm enjoying that space. That's space for me. That's peace. That's when the world is not happening around me. Like this, And
it's interesting. I like that. I have a friend who's is kind of trapped in Sun Valley, Idaho,
right,
and which is not a bad place to be trapped in. And so he goes out in the morning, and he'll take 3.5 or 4 hours to walk to the top of the mountain.
Right, very good.
And then snowboard down.
Right.
So he's all by himself, and he's it's I think he's having a beautiful experience of being in nature and being getting to the top of the mountain and
we say being in nature. Why is being in nature so good? Not every moment you're in nature, you're going, I'm in nature, I'm in nature, I'm in nature.
No, often we're in nature and not there at all.
You are, if you're really in nature and you're getting the benefit of being in nature, you're just being.
Yes.
Because
yes.
There is not an internet to distract you. There is maybe your cell phone doesn't work there. You are just being there, Now you don't have to go to nature for that. It's just if you're in your own house, chances are, like I have a plant here. I can be present to this plant as if I'm in the jungle of Costa Rica. That is my choice. And I can enjoy this greenness and this plant equally. It has nothing to do with Costa Rica. It has only to do with my state of mind. Inherently. Now, of course, just like it's easier to study in university than maybe in a bar, simply by what everyone else is doing. So if I'm in my house and I'm usually doing certain things in my house, then maybe shifting my attention maybe more difficult, where if I'm in Costa Rica, I may have no choice because there's nothing familiar to distract me. Makes sense?
Yes, of course, yeah.
So then, but I would not make it dependent upon a mountain or a snowboard. It's just going to be individual very much as to what that being is connecting with, and what and it'll be very individual. And then that becomes an avenue towards this sense of being here and resting more. And of course, some forces disturb us so intensely that you will find that you cannot. Meaning, you can be doing your project and you think you're distracting, but you're exploding on the inside because your business is failing or because your partner's left you or whatever. In that case, then
We're all of those things.
or all of those things, actually, in some cases, I know all of those things. So then maybe something more is needed, and maybe then that's what we said at the beginning of the talk. Then maybe the strength of that suffering becomes so profound that one says, oh my goodness, I need something even more, like I need more strong understanding, and guidance in order to not feel the way that I feel, or use that to come into better understanding, like that. And then maybe some different type of guidance is now being able to be heard, so to say, where it's maybe a more direct path, maybe could be like the case, so that people then pick up a book like by Hawkins, or watch some videos of these higher pointings, like that, where a more intense search begins.
Well, yeah, I guess often I only have my own example of, many years of being on the proverbial path, if you will, or thinking I was seeking, or and as I look back, though, I see that a lot of what I was doing, Adrian, was so that I could be better at something. I was trying to get something still, and do you know what I mean? There was
Yes.
it shifted now.
There's like a maturing going on.
Yes, yeah, and I think that
and a lot of people say, "Oh, I think I've got it now. I found it. And it seems that way for some time, and then some stronger thing comes, and then maybe that doesn't hold up.
Yes,
Or whatever was believed to be the answer doesn't hold up, and then some ongoing searching goes on.
Lots of times, I had an example yesterday with a man I spent some time with. We were doing some 5th step work in the 12-step program, and we were talking about climbing the mountain, and we've all seen pictures of the beauty of being on the top of Everest and how amazing it is, but many of us are camped out on a ledge halfway up. Kind of afraid to move, or thinking this is good enough, or we're safe here, and there is I think we have to and maybe, well, we'll see. I think that it's important to keep looking, or keep
maybe, yeah, one will know, no?
Yes.
What because that ledge, or whatever your analogy is, maybe that's where exactly one needs to catch their breath.
Well, and of course, yes, there's everything is as it needs to be.
Exactly, and then that becomes true, no?
Yes, and when I look back now, of course, I'm so grateful to be where I am in this moment.
Yes,
and yet I look back and I think, my gosh, I spent a lot of time hanging on to, in terrible storms, hanging onto that ledge,
but maybe had you not done that,
yeah,
like one can, like, I find retrospective ifing is that's just the same mind, actually.
Yes, of course, yeah.
It is still exact, because it's always done it. It will always do it, and it usually does it somehow to punish the current experience, or to claim that it could have been different, which in itself is so ridiculous, even from a logical perspective,
Yes, yes, yeah.
that it can easily be dismissed, and should not, I don't think it should be, any time should be spent even talking about it. It gives too much credit again to that mind that
Yes,
will do exactly the same thing in the future.
yeah.
And it just preserves that storytelling.
Cunning, isn't it?
I wouldn't even say it's cunning. It gives it too much value.
Okay.
When something is cunning, we believe it to be um, very tricky and very never know where it is. It becomes again the unknown enemy.
Ah,
It's it doesn't matter if it's cunning. All we have to do is not participate. It loses anything in that moment. That's why I say I wouldn't even call it cunning,
yes,
because there's an aspect of us that would love to call it cunning, and they would love to go to bats with it,
yes.
and would like to be smarter than it. Guess who that one is?
It's the same one.
Same one.
Yes. Yeah.
So
Conjuring up battles.
yes,
Yes.
and assuring its self-preservation.
Yes.
So this is why you when you say surrender, I mean it's surrendering it and not listening to its storytelling, even when it becomes like this really cute, oh, in the past and I could have and all that. Notice how much importance that story, if that story is told with any level of importance, just to cut it, just to dump it, not like just to leave it,
Hmm.
just turn direction.
So not to go against it, not to make you.
That's right.
Yeah, just
That's right.
oh,
Okay, there it goes again. No
yeah,
problem. We don't do this today.
yeah.
That's okay.
The other day we were talking about Muji was doing a meditation, and he talked about thank you, the mantra, just thank you, thank you, thank you, thank you. And it's so easy for me to see that the thank you in that depth of the thank you is it's not for anything,
Mm-hmm.
not about anything.
Mm-hmm.
To find our way to that, like Ram Dass said, becoming nobody.
And again, like the thank you will show you. You don't have to take yourself.
Yes.
So the invitation is just to the practice, not to do anything or to take yourself anywhere. Because the one who says, oh, I'll take myself there, that one cannot go there
No.
like that. And so a practice like saying just thank you, it cannot be done as a theory. It's not a future practice, it's not a past practice. It's, if one is inclined towards it, just do it.
Mm-hmm.
Don't expect anything of it.
Yes. Yeah.
Don't put a Facebook post, oh, today I'm saying thank you all day long.
Thank you. For me, I guess, and what I loved about it was that it has many times just come to me.
Mm-hmm.
First time that I'd seen a teacher share it, but and often in the middle of the night, and I would just drop into thank you, and it's that would in a way take me into this amazing space of emptiness and
Yes.
yeah.
I think, given your circumstances, David, I mean, it's really amazing how you are the very example of surrender, I mean, you talk about it, of course, but also the writing basically over these last couple of years for you have been very much as it has unfolded and where you find yourself to be today, no? Because you've had to let go of so many things, like it or not, you know. And
It's somewhat interesting because my prayer, of course, has been to see the whole mosaic. My prayer has been to have the opening, to be asking for the thing I couldn't describe. It's been my prayer for a number of years. So I don't, and it doesn't really matter, this question I'm about to ask, but do we have a premonition of the grace, or does grace come because of the prayer? I mean, I can't tell. It doesn't, and it doesn't matter, but it has been my prayer for much of my life to be of service, to be to see to have the opening of the whole mosaic, if
I
you would.
understand. Now, if the non-dual path is for you like this, yes, then I mean that question, you say this has been all your life, no? You say like this. The question that's not being asked in this question is who's asking it.
Yes, of course. Tell who am I?
Because when you ask it like this, it sounds like you ask from a David point of view.
Yes. Yeah.
And the non-dual path is one, if you pay attention to what all the teachers are saying, it's self-inquiry is the direct path. That is, who is this David? What is this David? So when that question comes, no, which sounds like a really big question, and David wants an answer, so to say. So that's where a stuckness can be, no? Because David keeps wanting an answer as a David, so that David can be what that is.
Yeah.
And that's the biggest surrender.
And you're right. It might have been, of course, David who asked, and it might not have been David who asked.
Maybe it's this is where investigation needs to happen. This is, from all my teachers, they all say, look there.
Yes.
Look there. Let's see who's talking.
Yeah.
If you listen to Muji, you've been doing this all season long. This is where he keeps pointing.
Mm-hmm.
And it's easy to be a spectator to that.
This is makes it difficult when we're doing an interview, when I get to the place where there's nothing to say.
Which is okay. I mean, what's there to say anyway?
Yeah.
We could just hang out. But you're gonna watch the clock, because I just came to mind 20 more minutes, because you have some other duties. I understand.
Yes. So, so the wish, I guess, the intention, whatever, is to help people get to this space.
Which space?
The
that
space
they find peace, no? That they don't
now.
suffer so much. Yes.
Yeah.
Yes, of course.
When everything in the screen disappears in a way. It doesn't mean that we're not dealing with the practical, or that we're not available. We actually can trust life. We can trust that everything that needs to happen will happen, and we'll in each moment we'll be fine. There's nothing really to fear.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, what a place to be, to be able to trust, especially during intense times like these, and to not be, rattled by fears and a lot. The response to fear can be freezing, so people freeze up,
Yes.
feel helpless, when there's also opportunities, so many opportunities during times that even sitting at home, or not even, like friends of mine, they have families, like maybe 2-3 weeks or 3 months ago, they would have said, I wish I had more time with my children. I'm seeing, well, maybe
Here we
now
are.
there's the time.
Yes, here we are.
Here we are, and we're forced to take that time. And because it's forced, maybe it doesn't feel like a choice, or but one can just decide that it's my choice, like I can just say, like, I'll I'm forced to do this, but I'm also choosing it. I'll see it as an opportunity, whatever it is. It's going to be very individually different. For some beings, I mean, I feel so badly. Like, for some people, this is when my mind goes to it, I feel really badly for them. Like when
From
focus on them.
from your mind. But I mean, really though, for all of us, this is such an opportunity to drop into surrender, to not knowing, to allowing, and not out of resistance. I mean, children say, I want, I want, I want, I want. They stamp their feet. They hit the wall. And as adults, like you spoke earlier of maturing, as adults, we recognize that, and the context of the father, if you will, and the child, in that this is happening, and this is happening, and as an adult, we can accept in each moment that, wow, this is happening. It doesn't mean that we won't be available to take care of what needs to be taken care of as it appears.
Yes.
And there is no really any other way.
Yeah. And it's interesting because it's such a global phenomenon that somehow nobody gets to go into some kind of, oh, I'm okay, like, us as a country is okay, and it doesn't matter that everyone else is struggling, because of the nature of this problem is that until we're all okay, nobody is okay.
So there's unification happening for sure.
It's whether it's done by compassion or liking it, it's forced.
Yes.
Because until we're all okay, no one's okay. Why? Because you only need one country that has people who are affected, who then start the next spread. I mean, it started supposedly with one person in China. So one person in the whatever country can start it all over again. If we're not cautious like this. So it's like a unifying thing in that sense that, we win our own battles, and then we win the collective battle, and then we can start to feel, okay, now we can go back to whatever the new normal will be. So, and I mean, so we're in the very beginning stages of this, because I mean, a lot of, like, when you look at how the wave is waving, it's
What's interesting, Adrian, is that at one level we don't know anything. We just don't know. We're being told that we're in the very beginning of this, and we don't know that that something isn't tomorrow going to be announced, that we have a cure, or we have a vaccine, or we have I mean, these things are moving alongside of us, and so, like, we just don't know. We're being told this, and I think this, in a way, the safest place to be is in the not knowing, and we're from the mind, we want to
there's a difference between not knowing and willful ignorance.
Well,
No, that's when the not knowing has been used as willful ignorance.
No, so, I'm not talking about that.
Okay. So when I'm saying, like I find it amusing when people say, well, I mean, tomorrow it could just all be gone, It's like, of course, it could be on some planet somewhere. But certain
And I'm not
trajectories are just certain trajectories. You don't need to go into denial about them. Uh, because again, why would there be a need for denial about natural trajectories?
Of course, and I'm not talking about denial. I'm talking about the mind wanting to speculate. We are meaning making machines and the mind craves certainty, and so there is no certainty. There never has been. This is just revealed that there never has been. And because nothing's changed. This just appeared. It was always had the possibility of appearing, and so if we're living in now, with this the certainty in now is that we don't know, and it doesn't mean that we can't be available or look after the practical or make sure that we have enough rice and beans, and toilet paper.
Yeah, and I mean, it doesn't have to extend past the rice and bean stage of looking at the direct trajectory of what's appearing, no?
Yes.
Meaning, like when you go shopping, you're also using the trajectory of you being hungry tomorrow as to why to buy rice, not buy it 100 grams that you need today, buy a whole pack. No, that's also a trajectory.
That's a practical,
that's
yes.
Assuming you're going to be alive tomorrow, to need rice tomorrow. Okay? That's some kind of a knowing, something knows I'll need this tomorrow.
Yes.
Right. So I'm just saying about that. I'm not trying to fearmonger or anything like that. When I say that the trajectory is showing us, it gives us a sense that something like this is unfolding. There's an unfoldment happening, and like this.
Yes. So it's interesting. Last night I watched the National. CBC, and they've changed. I think out of practicality, out of recognition that telling people another 2 weeks is not going to work, they're saying 3 months.
Right.
And I think, which is a practical thing to kind of get us to settle in. They're managing.
Time they tell the truth about it, or some level of truth about it.
They're managing the masses with and it might be less than, and it might be a bit more than, but so watching my mind go to, oh my gosh, what am I going to do? And then to drop back in and say, there's nothing. Let's just be here now. And actually, I have a project. This is it, and to bring you people.
But why was it important for you to? Like why didn't you? Why not use the mind and saying, okay, 3 months time frame. Let me put some things in place so that blah blah blah. That does not have to do anything to do with circular thinking, with paranoia,
or fear.
It's practical.
Yeah, I understand. Yes,
I think it's important to tell people to use that mind. That's the good part of your mind.
I'm a proponent of the practical. I am. What this whole thing that we're doing is more about is to help folks see that they don't have to go to fear.
Yes, exactly.
To deal with the practical, to be available in each moment, and to deal with some of the practicalities of things.
And I think it's good that finally the people in charge are being more transparent to what is so bloody obvious.
Yes.
It's like you're not dealing with, like, hopefully, like, don't pander to the children amongst us.
Yes.
Like, because they, like, just say it as you see it. Like I enjoy listening to the governor of New York, who's very just saying it as it is.
We all love him.
Like,
He
we're
could be
not,
the next president. His brother
yeah,
tried to get him to admit that he was going to run, but he doesn't want to upset Trump.
it's nice to see a natural leader like this
Yeah.
who
Yes.
can stay real. You know,
Yeah.
he's not there to win a nomination for presidency. He's literally just dealing with what's in front of him.
Yeah.
And he's talking sense.
Yeah.
That's good.
I also enjoy his
We should use common sense now.
demeanor, his way.
Yes, and he uses real life examples of how it plays out, because that's all he knows. You know, I mean, meaning all he knows. That's what he knows. It's
Yeah.
how it plays out with his brother, with his own family, with his community, and so on. And you know, brings it kind of home that way rather than a manicured press conference where, you know, one thing is said today and then 2 weeks later you have to try to keep face upon what you said 2 weeks ago because you were kind of bullshitting, because you had a certain agenda back then, and now this agenda has fallen apart in light of what's really happening, and so on and so on.
Yes.
So I'm enjoying the people who are just it's called realistic, or, you know, or not overly realistic, not like so realistic that things are being fixated and said this is how it's going to be, but just it looks like this is what we're in for. So with that knowledge you can start to adjust, you know, make your adjustments, get yourself ready in whichever way, and then actually your support can be very helpful because people now know it's like, oh, this is not going to go in 2 weeks, and I don't, this mind of mine is going to go pretty wonky over the course of 2 months, so I better start talking to David a little bit more. Something like that.
Well, they've got you as well. Call Adrian, you guys. He can. Adrian, you do love to help people. You know.
Yeah, I like helping. I've always liked helping people.
Yeah, I mean, as long as I've known you, and really it was, I think the thing that clicked with me and you was when I realized that you had, you know, been a student of Hawkins at one time, you know, that you were, and I thought, wow, because I had been so enamored by Dr. David Hawkins. He finally explained things in a way that, you know,
my experience was the same. Yeah.
Like, see these, oh my gosh, there was his books, you know, I actually took a year off and went to Australia and you know, I carried his books. It was before we had Audible and
Yeah.
you know, and slept with them. They were high vibration, right? So
Yeah, I was never really into that side of things so much.
yes,
I thought that was again less significant for me. But the information that was shared, like I drank it up very much.
yeah,
Even though I had to put on some burner, some other things that didn't quite pass my radar, which is fine. And that's going to depend on everyone who reads it. Like I always say, just read it from the place that you may. Actually, your next person, it's who is it going to be? Puya?
yeah.
I met him. I did a Vipassana in 2012. I met, and then I went to Vancouver, gave a guy a ride, and went to a Hawkins group in Vancouver. And that's where I met Puya, actually. And then I did not meet him again until he came to our Kensington store. Our last year, I think that was 2018, and we had a good chat. And then he says, "I have met you before," and like this.
Yeah,
So.
Puya's done 8 10-day Vipassanas, which, you know, I think I've been afraid to do one yet. He does. You know, I haven't got it. Actually, the truth is, I was married to that store, and I kind of I wasn't able to go, and it just never happened. But
Yeah, for sure. You have to have a 10-day stretch that you can have for free, and then the other thing is you have to sign up way ahead of time, so you have to kind of know when that will be down the road. But you know, that also gives the one who's afraid a lot of reasons why not to sign up, so to say, so it kind of goes hand in hand a little bit, because of course it's daunting to sit with yourself with no distractions for 10 days. It's daunting, but for me it changed everything. It absolutely changed everything.
I've got Puya in about 11, so we've got a few more minutes.
Okay, cool.
He said, I'm looking forward to, I never know, all of these interviews, and just want to share with the people that are watching that we did 2 yesterday. Were you yesterday too?
I was as well, in the morning.
And 2 the day before. Some great interviews. So if you check either on the YouTube channel, these are going live on YouTube at the same time as live on Facebook, and check back and look at some of the interviews. Are really good. Alice Hung was my first one on Tuesday, and Jay McLeod, and then you were yesterday morning, and then yesterday afternoon was James McEwen. Yes, we sang. He sang a mantra beautifully, didn't he? I don't know if you did. You stay?
I didn't watch the mantra, but
he really sang beautifully, and then you this morning in Puya this afternoon, or at 11:30 or 11:15, and today Malcolm Saunders.
Oh yes, that's right.
Today, Malcolm's at the Light Cellar, and I'd like to see how he's doing, and also highlight that he's open. And
he's open, yeah.
Yes.
Well, I'll go there when I can escape my quarantine.
Friday's your last day, eh?
Yeah.
And I told you that I was working relief at the treatment center, and when they found out that I picked you up at the airport, they wouldn't let me. They took away my shifts.
Yeah, there's
that was
a lot of fear, It's like again,
I was apologetic to them because they actually they needed me, and so it wasn't something they did lightly.
Right.
They were like, "Oh, okay." So Friday's my last day of
good. Yeah.
Obviously, you didn't drag anything home from India with you.
No, but again, like this is 2 weeks ago now, and I knew that I good at stats. Like I knew the risk was extremely low, extremely low. I honestly, I feel less safe now going into a superstore than I did on my trip home.
Yes.
Now, having said that, and you and I have talked, it was quite shocking to see the lax ways of the Vancouver airport at that stage, when I had actually expected to some really advanced screening already.
Can you see how it's changing, especially around masks? I mean, the whole North American idea around masks is just
it's like halfway now. Yeah,
they're feeding us more. Well, maybe we should wear masks. Maybe not a bad idea, and so it is shifting from like 3 weeks ago. It was like, are you kidding?
Yeah, it was like when I first came home and I voiced that, and it was really, it was like, don't go there kind of topic, and it changed in 2 weeks, and naturally will change because, with how this virus behaves, with all these asymptomatic cases, and people having to go out in public, this is beyond social distancing. This is literally needing to live certain aspects of life, like groceries, banking, and all these things that are necessary. So for me, it was so clear from the get-go that covering, my friend Annie, she actually was in Wuhan in December. She wrote me a little thing. She says, my masks protects you, and your mask protects me. Like this. So it's because of course we are not using the medical safety masks where we're protecting ourselves as much. It's some shield, of course, but the whole point of it is, I'm protecting you by covering what I'm putting into the air. Like this, that's it.
Yeah.
Doesn't have to be 100% effective. It's just to reduce the overall load,
Yeah.
potentiality. That's it.
Yeah.
And that very little sacrifice. Like, meaning, again, it can be a homemade mask that can be washed when coming home. But you shouldn't be out anyways. So you don't have to wash it 5 times a day, because you're doing all the different things all day long. Depending on what, if you have a job, it's a different thing that takes you to the house. But if you're, so.
Yeah, that was how that conversation came up at Fresh Start, when they'd asked me to come in, and I said, well, should I wear a mask? And they said, well, no, masks don't really protect you. And I said, well, just a second, I'm worried about protecting, if I'm coming in, I want to protect the people that are there.
So it's changing, and
yeah.
The directives are changing. Like, some now are saying, well, if you feel to wear one, even from like the higher places.
Yeah.
And I suspect after the US is done investigating that, as they're doing right now, I suspect they cannot not recommend that you wear one.
Yeah.
Simply because of the whole, it will be in the books that they're the ones who continue to insist that it wasn't needed. And they're having such an explosion of cases in this.
It's freaking crazy. I wanted to, before we go, because I think that lots of people who know you and know me and recognize that we have, been kind of at this work, if you will, for a long time. Will you share briefly, your practice? Do you have a meditation practice? Anything that you want to share about what you're doing?
I think only just being mindful.
Okay.
I don't meditate. I think meditation is really good and helpful. But for me, I'm just always mindful. That's it. Meaning,
how do you bring yourself to being, mindful? I mean, it's actually a funny sentence, mindful, isn't it? Because it's the mind that, so you mean you're being present, you're being here now, you're being, you say mindful.
Comes.
Yes. Yeah. In each moment, if we can possibly be.
Yeah. And sometimes I'm not mindful. I'm mindful of that too.
Yeah, me too. All right. Well,
that if there's that practice, I would say that's sort of the practice. It's also called self-abidance.
Yes.
Some years ago, when I asked Swami, and if you hear that, that's actually my Chinese supplier who's kindly trying to hook me up. So I said to him, how do I go back into, I have to run a business and so on. How do I manage to be in that world, yet stay as the self, so to say, or abide here, in this quiet space? And he said, look, Adrian, life is a river of tears, he called it. And you can't just be doing your business and doing all these things. You have to abide as self. It's called, that's what you're gonna have to do. Not like, he didn't say you have to practice, you have to meditate an hour a day. He didn't say that. He said, just stay here as much as you can. That's it.
The dude abides.
The
dude.
What's the dude?
The dude. It was a movie. There was some guy in the movie. His name, they called him the dude. And,
okay.
And the dude abides. And actually, I have it on my Facebook page as my post that the dude.
Okay.
The great. I forget the name of the movie. Anyway, I'll send it to you.
Gatsby?
No. It was not quite so glamorous, but I'll send it to you. It's okay. It'll come back. I gotta go, but I wanted to mention a couple of quick things. Yes. One is that, this is just for people that pick this up and watch, and they say, well, where do I start? you know, and there's I think some amazing teachers that are so available to us. Eckhart Tolle, YouTube, has got so many of his talks, and also his books. I remember a number of years ago, I was sitting somewhere with my son Regan, and he said, "Dad, I think you should read Eckhart Tolle's A New Earth Again." And he was like 22 or 23. And I said, "Yeah." I got a little defensive and said, "Well, how many times have you read it?" He said, "I've only read it 3 times, but I've listened to it 4 times on Audible. So I guess 7. And, and I said, "Okay, yes, you're right. I should probably read that book again." And because he trumped me like crazy. But so Eckhart Tolle's amazing. I think Ram Dass on YouTube again his talks are amazing. And if you take the time to go into them, and Alan Watts as well. For me, I think Alan Watts really paved the way for many of us, and there's lots of depth there. And recently, and who's available to us all right now, Muji's. I've spent many hours with Muji. I kind of go deep when I find a teacher, and I'm still spending hours with Muji every day. And so Mooji. If So those are some of the teachers, and of course Hawkins. We've talked quite a bit about Dr. David Hawkins here, his books, and so if you're on the path and you're thinking, how do I, where do I go? Who can point for me to go deeper? Those are some of my teachers. Some of
I've also been really enjoying Rupert Spira's.
Oh yes. Yeah. Poya gave me a book from
very very practical, very very good for sort of a very mind-oriented, sober-looking. Not no fanfare or nothing, just sober-looking.
And speaking of sober, the 12 steps in the program of recovery of the 12-step program is amazing if you actually do them. And it's beautiful because it's set up so you can have a sponsor and somebody can help you go through them. The awakening that happens as a result of this the spiritual experience that is literally guaranteed from these 12 steps is I recommend it highly. And because we're all living in addiction at one level or another, unless we're not, and whether we're addicted to our work or addicted to, but we have these addictions.
Yeah, everyone can relate to addiction. The mind, obsessive thinking can be an addictive thinking, so to say, if you want to expand the scope to that. Anything that's that we can't let go. So
I think there's like 150. I may be actually conservative with this, but 150 different programs that are using those 12 steps.
Is that right? Wow.
Yes, like we know about NA, Narcotics Anonymous, Cocaine Anonymous, Gamblers Anonymous, and Emotions Anonymous, and Overeaters Anonymous, and Alcoholics Anonymous, and we know about all of those, but it's endless, and different programs that have picked up and actually used the steps with the approval of the original, which was Alcoholics Anonymous. With the New York Central Office has approved all of these people to use those 12 steps to help the people to find their way out of the depths of the hole that we get ourselves into. So
awesome. That's really great. Thanks for doing all that work. I think that's
thank you. I love our conversations. Of course, I don't know anything, and my imagining is that we might be doing this for some time, and so I'd love to have you back on again in a week or two, and share again, and yeah, awesome. Love you.
I think I have time.
So thank you for the work that you do. I mean, I think that every drop lifts the ocean, and we're in this together. We're consciousness is we're all part of the same consciousness, and So the work you do affects everyone. And so thank you.
Well, thank you too. Nice to see you, David.
Hey, brother. Love you. We'll talk soon.
Love you. I'm looking forward to listening to you and Puya.
Okay. You'll be fun.
Okay, I'm sure it will be. Take
Yeah.
care.
Bye.
See you soon. Bye.